Video, we'll talk about the composing process. In last week's videos, I did talk a little bit, I believe, about there is a difference between writing and composing, so we'll cover that in this video, as well as really learning what the process of composing is. So I want to start off by saying that I actually love this lecture because I feel like we compose every day and we don't even know it. Same as using rhetoric every day and we don't even acknowledge it. We also compose in our everyday life. So let's start off with writing versus composing. When we think about writing, we think about alphabetical text to paper, whether that is manually written with a pencil and notebook paper, or whether it is typing on a computer and sending something off, whether it's an email, a research paper, a document. We think about writing as alphabetical text to paper. Composing, however, is a little bit more broad, and I take into consideration that it's really about the creation process. It's about creating. So, what are you creating, and what is the process of that creation? Some examples can be music. You compose music. Another one is web development. You compose a website. There are so many factors that go into composing a website. A resume, you just composed a resume. You did write it, but you also composed it as well. You compose tweets. So anytime you write a tweet or a Instagram caption, you're composing, you're creating. Whenever you lead discussions, you're also composing. You're creating a certain type of space. You're creating a certain type of conversation. Even this PowerPoint that I made, it is a part of the composing process. I am creating something for a certain audience, for a certain situation, for a certain need. So, writing and composing both use rhetorical strategies. So, we think about audience, we think about situation, we think about strategies, we think about how to convey a message that is important to us, to readers. Writing and composing also use the composing process. So, writing is an act of creation, composing, like music, like developing tweets, like painting, that is also creation, that is composing. So, for your projects with your community partner, many of you may not be writing explicitly, but you will be composing. So there are some foundational steps to the composing process. The first one is analyzing the situation. The second is choosing, discovering information. So keeping that constant research state of mind, like we talked about in a previous video of researching your community partner and understanding your position. You always want to keep that constant research state of mind in the composing process when you're choosing and discovering information. The third is arranging that information you've discovered. Fourth, drafting. Fifth, revising. And the sixth and final step is editing the finished draft. Now, these are just foundational steps. They are not all of the steps that it takes to compose. There are, of course, meta steps or steps in between these steps, but these are some of the ones that you will encounter in whatever craft or document or project you compose. If you'll notice, I arranged drafting, revising, and editing into 3 different stages because they are 3 different stages. We like to sometimes put all of those into a final stage, but there's actually some details that we can take into consideration of how they are different from one another, and I hope that this video will show you how. So if we start off with the first one, analyzing the situation, we of course always need to start off with some questions. What do you need to write? What is the situation? Why are you given this project? Why do you need to compose? Why do you need to write? And what do you need to write? Is there a problem? Is there a certain need? What solution will the project offer? What is it that needs to be achieved from your writing? Is there a certain message that needs to be conveyed? Is there a certain type of value you need to showcase through your composing process, through your project, through your writing? From these questions, we can think about the readers and who will read your document. So, what are the readers' situation? What are their stakes? What will they gain out of reading your document, your web page, your even your discussion that you have? I know one of the community partners is gathering with intergenerational folks and having weekly discussions. So, what will those people gain from the situation? What are their situations? So, writing and composing isn't just compiling information, it's understanding what solution you will provide with your writing. All right, the next step is choosing and discovering information. So you select information and content based on your purpose. So, like the first question stated, situation, what is your purpose? What is it that you need to write? What is it that you need to compose, and why? So content based on your purpose, what your reader needs are what are the things that they need. Why are you given this task? There's obviously going to be an audience or the reader, so what do they need? And how you think your reader perceives the subject. This one is very important too, because this is another rhetorical move that you need to be able to get into the mind of the reader, get into the mind of your target audience. Are your target audience older people? Are your target audiences children? Are your target audiences stakeholders who have money, who will provide funding for your project? You need to think about what your reader knows about the subject, and then that is going to determine how much or how little information you provide. So, to start, you want to begin a list of ideas you can use to develop your topic. And this list should be based on what you want your readers to know and also what actionable things you want them to do. So, one of the first steps is making that list. What are the ideas that you want to convey in your project? Look at the list. Think of tangible ideas that may tie to additional things you may need to know. So once you have that basic list of large themes, of large ideas that you want your reader to know about, and what you want them to do, then go back and maybe think of sub things that contribute to those ideas. What are smaller items that will help you get to that point? What are additional information that you need to have in order for you to get to those points? Finally, you want to summarize your information and ideas you research. So start a document that prioritizes the important information first that you should include in your writing. So this could include certain quotes. This could include statistics that you receive from your community partner, any type of data, anything that is credible to supporting your idea and your subject. Again, what will the readers realistically need to know? This is taking into consideration your audience. What does my audience need to know based on who they are? And once you've gathered up all your information, you want to start thinking about arranging that information. And this is taking it a little bit more of a deep dive into what I mean by composing. So after you've collected your information from your research, how do you want to begin organizing it? And this organization process is going to look different for everyone because not everyone is creating the same thing. Some of you may be creating a conversational space. Some of you may be creating a web page. Some of you may be creating a narrative document. So how do you want to begin organizing that based on the information you've gathered? What is the best order or layout to present that information? Again, that's going to be different for everyone. How do you want it ordered and organized? Would it be best if it's chronologically ordered based on the events of how things happened? Is it by importance? So do you want what's important first and least important last? What is it that you want to arrange it by? Do you need to begin with a summary? Like when you compose your progress reports, do you need to start off with a summary of what is to come in the document you're composing. Maybe you want to start off with a graphic. Or is there a template that's provided by your community partner or a boilerplate letter that your organization requires you to follow? These are all things to take in consideration when you are also communicating with your community partner for the first time. How is it, do they want information arranged? That's an important question to ask. How is it they want their information arranged for the document? That will also determine how you will choose and discover information as well. So after you've arranged that information, after you've gathered resources, and you've started writing, well, this is actually the writing stage, is the drafting stage. So your drafting process is going to look different than everyone else. I say this not only with our projects, but also even with your own writing assignments that you have in this class. How you draft your, even your discussion post may look different to your peers. So everyone's drafting process is different. No one's will ever look the same. There is no right way to draft. Some of your ideas that you have, that you've collected from your research, they may be headings to sections in your report or your document or your web page, whatever it may be. Some ideas could be combined with others because they overlap so well. So keep that in mind, that seeing if you can join two ideas, two themes, 2 points together. Never be afraid to delete, to arrange, copy, paste, anything all over the place. Don't be afraid to chop up your document. Writing is so messy. Composing is such a messy process, and it should be, because this is an opportunity where you are creating something new. You never, even an artist, when they are painting, if they make a mistake, they don't start over. You use that mistake and you use it for something else. You arrange it in a different way. You create something out of it. Luckily, with writing and using electronics, like, we can delete those mistakes and we can start over. But try your best during this drafting process to really just keep going and keeping your mistakes there. Do not try to revise when you are drafting. It's not the same thing. So while you're writing or composing, don't correct yourself. That's revising. You don't want to correct yourself while you're drafting, even if it doesn't sound right to you, even if there is a misspelled word, even if it's too long of a sentence. If it's a run-on sentence, keep going. It doesn't matter. Just keep writing. Get it all out on paper. And I encourage you to literally word vomit everything out. Write as much as you possibly can without looking back, without rereading things. Don't correct yourself. Just write. This is part of the drafting process. I promise you, even if you've reached or extended your word count limit, just keep writing. And then we can move on to revising. So once you word vomited everything out, once you have everything out on the page, now you can start developing and formalizing your document. So some of the ways that you can start revising is by logic and organization. Does your presentation make sense? Are they in the appropriate order? Do your paragraphs stay on one topic? Or are there multiple topics presented in the paragraph? That's actually a big one. You want one idea per paragraph. Don't jump from idea to idea in a paragraph. That gets entirely confusing for the reader. If there is one thing you want to talk about, there's one idea, one main point, stick to that one main point in one paragraph. If you find that there are a few, break it up during this revising process. So how can you move things around in focused areas and then in the larger paper as a whole? So when we think about focused areas, I like to think about a paragraph. That's going to be a focused area. So how can you move things around in your paragraph to make sense? But then looking at the document as a whole, maybe how can you move that paragraph in another place in the document? Think about completeness. Does your document seem complete, given your purpose, your motive, to compose it and the reader's needs and requirements. Have you checked all your information for correctness? Are you citing everything appropriately? Are you making sure that all that is expected and required of you from the partner for this project, is it there? Does it have all the information requested from you by your reader or team leader, or even myself for our writing assignments too? Make sure you are able to check off that list, that it's complete from everything that is expected of you. The style. So, do you have full paragraphs? Are there topic sentences to ensure clear flow? Are there are there too much wordiness, denseness, complicated sentences? Do you have too long of paragraphs? Are you keeping true to the main purpose or goal of your paper? So these are all stylistic questions you can ask yourself as you are in the revising process. And here we have a second slide, revising process continued, because this is probably going to be the longest part of the composing process. It's not the research, it's not the writing part or the drafting part, it's literally the revising part that's going to take you, and it should be the longest part of your assignments and your projects. So if you include illustrations, do you need tables, photos, graphs, drawings, or videos to help your reader understand and remember key ideas? Are they placed in an appropriate and designated places in your document? Do they support, or are they actually distracting to your purpose? So that question, that last one, is actually really important. You need to really weigh out, does the graphic or illustration I include, is it distracting my readers, or does it actually help me make a point? That's going to be something that you have to take into consideration and even ask your community partner about too. And finally, the document design. The document design refers to the way you arrange information and display it on a page. So this is, again, thinking back to our design of our resumes. Are the headers appropriate? Is the font same throughout? Is the design something from readers or something your readers will be able to understand? Is it inviting and accessible? And who is it accessible to? That's actually a really great question to ask yourself when you are completing and revising your projects, is who is this inviting and accessible to? Who is it not inviting and accessible to? So who will not benefit from this? Take those into serious considerations when you consider your audience and who you would realistically want to read this. Think about being accessible to everyone. And finally, you have the editing process. So it's good to get into the habit of having several edits in one document. Personally, for me, I always have 3 before before I turn it in, before I turn in anything final for my classes or for my own professors. So 3 is a good medium to have when you are editing a document, but you can also have so much more than that. I've had 7 edits of documents before. So there's really never a limit. You can always improve your document. I like to think that each day you come, you're a changed person each day, right? You bring new experiences each day, different from yesterday's, different from last week's. You're constantly growing, you're constantly learning. So naturally, how you think about things, how you write, how you communicate those things are going to change. So whenever you come back to a document, you're coming back as a changed person each time. And your writing is always going to reflect that. And that's the only way that your writing is going to improve and excel, is you think about yourself coming as a changed person to this document each day. Your writing, of course, is naturally going to change. So one of the first edits is, this is the part where you look at spelling, usage, punctuation, accurate sentence structure. So all that grammar nonsense. You want to make sure that it's a clean document, free of those types of minimal errors in your first edit. The second edit, you want to look at the document as a whole. So reading it through completely, does it sound readable? Like, can I make it through without stumbling? How does it look, even? Are the headers appropriate? Does it look neat? Does it look organized? How does it sound? Um, is important information easy to locate? Am I taking too long at the beginning to get to my actual main point? Or is it right there at the front where readers will, once they put their eyes within the first paragraph, they know exactly what the document's about? Have I included all the info that I want? Your third edit can be your sources. Did you provide credit for all the areas of information you've gathered? Are they documented appropriately, not only at the end, but also in the document itself? Are you giving credit to the source? Always, always, always. And like our video of ethical writing talks about plagiarism and attribution. So always give credit to those sources you've gathered, even if it's internally. Even if it's from your own company, if it's from your own organization, you want to give credit to that source. So checking for every possible error in one reading is actually going to be impossible, and it's not going to be helpful. So editing is a practice of patience. It takes some time, and sometimes it really does take, like I said, leaving and coming back to it the next day. With new eyes. Sometimes you just have to leave things for a few days too. I know I've left documents for a couple of days, even weeks at a time. I think I've left documents for months at a time, whole semesters at a time, and come back later to it and come back refreshed and new, and really be able to make those changes and see the mistakes that I wasn't able to see from just sitting at a computer for hours at a time. So always leave room for editing at the end of your composing process. I would say at least a couple of days to edit, because you want this to take your time. You want to take your time. And when you enter the workforce, you want to be able to give yourself that time of editing to catch any of these mistakes. I hope this was helpful. If there are any questions, please let me know. Oh, look, I have some final thoughts. Sorry, not done yet. So some final thoughts is the composing process is used for nearly all things you create. So it is a creation process. So composing is similar to creation. The composing process is a rhetorical process. So how are you arranging information, your writing, revising word choice to showcase and communicate an important idea you want your readers to take away? Remember, we use rhetoric every day to communicate an idea that is important to us. The composing process does the same thing. So you're going to apply this composing process for all your writing assignments you complete in this class, the projects you do for your community project, and any type of writing you do in your future careers. So always keep this type of information in the back of your pocket, because the composing process is used nearly in all things that you create. So I hope this was helpful. I don't think there's anything else. Yep, I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing how you use the composing process in your own writing and also your creation of your projects.